Whenever I listen back to something that I do, it just makes me feel weak.
She lit up the AGT stage and left millions speechless. But behind Courtney Hadwin's powerful voice was a silent battle no one saw coming. Most people think her story was one of pure talent, overnight fame, and easy success. But the truth is, her rise came with an emotional cost that nearly broke her, and the real story is far more painful than the world ever imagined. With over 200 million views, international headlines, and a recording deal with Simon Cowell, Courtney became one of AGT's most iconic contestants, but fame brought shadows with it. In this video, we're diving into the full story, from the viral moment that launched her to the emotional trials that almost silenced her voice forever. She looked like the kind of girl who'd whisper her name in a crowd. But when she opened her mouth on that AGT stage, Courtney Hadwin did something no one was ready for. The crowd was quiet. The judges waited, maybe expecting nerves or hesitation. Instead, Courtney exploded into Hard to Handle by Otis Redding. It wasn't just good, it was unreal. She danced like a rock star, her voice raw and electric, something out of a different era. Within seconds, the entire room was on its feet. And then it happened. Howie Mandel slammed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti rained down. And just like that, a shy teenager from Hartlepool, England became an overnight global sensation. Millions watched that clip. Millions shared it. She was the girl who came out of nowhere and conquered one of the world's biggest stages. The perfect Cinderella story, right? But here's where it gets interesting. The applause was real, but so was the pressure. The second that golden buzzer hit, so did the expectations. People wanted more performances, more shock, more wow. The internet crowned her a prodigy, but behind the camera, Courtney wasn't celebrating. She was overwhelmed. What the world saw as her breakthrough, she quietly experienced as a storm. Her life changed in an instant, but change isn't always easy or kind. What started as a moment of triumph became a balancing act between fame and identity. And that tension, between the spotlight and her soul, was just getting started. She was supposed to be the shy girl with the golden voice, a quiet underdog who shocked the world. But the internet doesn't like stories that are too perfect. After her AGT audition went viral, fans began digging. They discovered something that, on the surface, seemed harmless. Courtney Hadwin had competed before, on The Voice Kids UK, and suddenly everything changed. Comment sections turned dark. She's not shy, she's a fake. This was all staged. People who had cheered her on just days earlier were now tearing her apart for being too experienced. In their minds, her humble image had been manufactured. But they missed one thing. Courtney never claimed to be a complete unknown. She was just a kid who loved to sing, who had tried, failed, and tried again. But that's not all. The backlash wasn't limited to trolls, even entertainment. Bloggers started questioning her narrative, implying that AGT had scripted her audition for dramatic effect. It didn't matter that countless other contestants had similar pasts. Courtney had been placed on a pedestal, and the second people saw a crack, they wanted to knock her down. The internet wanted a shy Cinderella, but real people don't fit into fairy tales. What hurt the most? She was shy. Her family, friends, even her school teachers backed her up, saying she was the kind of girl who barely raised her hand in class. She'd even sing in her sleep because performing in front of others made her anxious. The fierce confidence she showed on stage, that was her escape. Music wasn't a costume. It was freedom. The world had turned her most vulnerable truth into a weapon. And Courtney? She was left wondering if being honest had been a mistake. To the world, Courtney Hadwin was a rising star. But behind the stage lights, she was quietly breaking. After her viral AGT performance, Courtney's life changed overnight. Her face was suddenly everywhere, on magazine covers, in viral thumbnails, in countless YouTube reaction videos. People stopped her on the street. Kids at school treated her differently, some with admiration, others with sarcasm and envy. She was no longer just Courtney from Hartlepool. She was Courtney Hadwin, the girl with the golden buzzer. And for a teenager who used to be painfully shy, that kind of attention wasn't just overwhelming, it was crushing. But then, it took a darker turn. The more famous she got, the less control she had. Strangers commented on her voice, her clothes, her expressions, every move dissected, every moment judged. She was still a kid, but now expected to act like a polished celebrity. Behind closed doors, anxiety crept in. She second-guessed herself constantly. Social media became a minefield of negativity. And worse, some of that cruelty followed her offline. in hallways, on buses, from people who used to know her, or thought they did. The bullying wasn't always loud, but it was persistent and it cut deep. Her parents saw the toll it was taking. Her mother worried if fame would destroy the very thing that made Courtney special, her emotional connection to music. Her father tried to keep her grounded, reminding her that even global stars like Ed Sheeran had faced brutal online hate. But what does that matter when you're 14 and drowning in pressure? And just when they thought it was over. The pandemic hit. Her performances were canceled. Festivals she was scheduled to play, gone. Opportunities vanished. The momentum she'd worked so hard to build suddenly froze. But instead of spiraling, Courtney made a choice. She leaned into the one thing she could control, her art. And from that stillness, something powerful began to grow. Courtney Hadwin had everything young artists dream of: fame, fans, a record deal with Simon Cowell. But she walked away, and no one saw it coming. After AGT, Courtney signed with Psycho and Arista Records. It was a major win, validation that she wasn't just a reality show talent, but a real contender in the music industry. She released the cover sessions, delivering fresh takes on massive hits like Old Town Road and Someone You Loved. The production was clean, the vocals were strong. On paper, it looked like everything was going right. But behind the scenes, something didn't feel right. She was singing other people's stories, wrapped in other people's expectations. The raw, unpredictable girl who had stomped and screamed her way into the world's hearts was being polished into something more digestible, safe, commercial. And it wasn't her. The same Courtney who once sang on the streets to fund her own lessons was now feeling silenced in the studio. And that's when everything changed. In 2023, buried deep in a YouTube comment reply, Courtney confirmed what fans had started to suspect. She was no longer signed to a label. She was independent. No press release, no drama, just quiet liberation. For the first time, she was in full control. No middlemen, no image managers, just the music and her voice. She released Breakable, a hauntingly vulnerable track that was worlds away from anything she'd done before. Then came That Girl Don't Live Here, a gritty, defiant anthem that made one thing clear: the shy girl from AGT was gone. In her place stood a woman with fire in her lungs and stories to tell. Hold that thought, because what came next would solidify her transformation in a way no label ever could. Most child stars fade, some crash. But Courtney Hadwin? She evolved. While others her age were trying to figure out who they were, Courtney was battling expectations from millions of strangers. And yet, she never stopped moving forward. She didn't retreat. She didn't conform. Instead, she changed, on her terms. Her hair turned fiery red. Her performances got bolder. Her voice, once described as too intense, became her signature. She started sharing bits of her world through TikTok and Instagram, not as a polished pop princess, but as herself. Awkward, hilarious, emotional, real, and the world noticed. On TikTok alone, she pulled over 1.1 million followers and nearly 10 million likes. Her posts weren't manufactured viral hits. They were messy, unfiltered glimpses into the mind of an artist figuring it out in public. She teased unreleased songs, posted covers from her room, showed her recording process. She wasn't chasing trends, she was the trend. Fans connected with that. Not the perfection, the process, the imperfections, the journey. But here's where it gets crazier. Even as the industry threw curveballs, canceled festivals, lost gigs, a pandemic, Courtney didn't crumble. She adapted. When Woodstock 50 fell apart, when COVID stopped live shows, when label support disappeared, she kept creating. Her music shifted. It grew deeper. Monsters, one of her most powerful songs yet, tackled mental health and inner demons with blistering rock energy. No label, no PR machine. Just Courtney, speaking truth. That song hit number 19 on Billboard's Hard Rock digital sales chart. As an independent artist, not bad for a girl the world once dismissed as just a reality show singer. Not bad at all. Just when the world thought Courtney Hadwin had faded into the background, she came back louder, stronger, and more fearless than ever. It was 2019. Most fans thought her AGT journey was over. She hadn't won the top prize, and the buzz was starting to cool. But Courtney wasn't done. Not even close. She returned to America's Got Talent, The Champions, a global showdown featuring the best performers from around the world. This time, She didn't walk on stage with someone else's hit. She debuted her own original song, Pretty Little Thing, and it stopped everyone in their tracks. The crowd roared. Judges stared in disbelief. And Courtney? She didn't flinch. It wasn't just about singing anymore. It was about proving she belonged. Not as a contestant, as a creator, an artist. Her voice cracked with emotion, her energy unfiltered, raw, and real. But remember this part. It's important later. Even though she placed third, her impact outshined the rankings. Headlines praised her. Fans multiplied. And for the first time, people saw Courtney not as a novelty act, but as a force. She didn't need to win a trophy to win the audience. From there, she exploded online. Her YouTube channel crossed 600,000 subscribers and 30 million views. She dropped more live covers, Beggin', Survivor, Sign of the Times, each one reminding people why they fell in love with her in the first place. But more than that, they revealed something new. Maturity, control, depth, and something else. Hunger. Courtney wasn't just surviving the music industry, she was learning how to bend it to her will. And in doing so, she became something rare, an artist with nothing left to prove, and everything left to say. For most artists, landing a major festival slot is the dream. For Courtney Hadwin, it became a recurring heartbreak. In 2019, she was set to perform at Woodstock 50, a high-profile anniversary of the legendary festival. It could have been her biggest live stage yet, a full-circle moment to honor her rock roots. But the event collapsed before it even began. Venue issues, money problems, and bad press turned the comeback celebration into a cautionary tale. For Courtney, it was another door slammed shut just as she reached for the handle. But that's not the only one. In 2021, she was scheduled to take the stage at FM4 Frequency Festival in Austria. A fresh opportunity, a new audience, and again, cancelled. Another live moment taken away. First Woodstock, then this. And all the while, the world was still reeling from the COVID-19 pandemic, which had already frozen concerts, tours, and momentum for so many young artists. You won't believe what happened next. Instead of waiting for stages to reopen, Courtney built her own. She turned to her fans, directly. She released a cover of Happy Xmas, War Is Over, not as a flashy single, but as a heartfelt offering. The timing was perfect. The world needed hope, and Courtney delivered it in the form of a stripped-down, emotionally loaded rendition that reached across borders and screens. She followed up not with flashy appearances, but with connection. She began engaging more with fans on YouTube, responding to comments, teasing new projects. It was subtle, but strategic. The girl who once stood silently in auditions was now taking control of her voice in a whole new way, and with every setback, she got bolder. Because Courtney Hadwin didn't need a festival to prove her power. She just needed a mic, and the will to keep going. When Courtney Hadwin quietly confirmed in a YouTube comment that she was now fully independent, it didn't make headlines. But it should have. After Psycho Music, the label she'd signed with post-AGT, shut down. Many fans wondered what would happen next. Would she vanish like so many child stars before her? Would she chase another label? Instead, Courtney made a choice that shocked even her most loyal followers. She decided to go it alone. No corporate backing, no machine, just her voice, her pen, and her vision. It sounds crazy, but it's true. Her first independent release, Breakable, dropped on February 24th, 2023. The song wasn't a typical pop anthem. It was a raw, vulnerable ballad about fragility and emotional honesty. It didn't scream for attention. It didn't need to. The lyrics cut deep. The delivery was mature. Fans noticed, and they responded, not with hype, but with gratitude. Courtney was finally giving them her. Weeks later came That Girl Don't Live Here, a title that said it all. She wasn't the girl from AGT anymore. The song pulsed with confidence and defiance, like she was drawing a line in the sand. The past was over. Then came Call Me Back, a soulful plea filled with longing and grit. And just when listeners thought they'd figured her out, she dropped Monsters, a high-energy rock anthem that tackled anxiety, stress, and the unseen battles we fight. And here's the twist. Without a major label, without a massive promo campaign, Monsters charted, number 19 on Billboard's hard rock digital song sales. An independent teen artist with no traditional push had cracked a space usually dominated by big-budget acts. That's not just rare. That's unheard of. Courtney wasn't just surviving. She was thriving, on her terms, in her voice. Finally, most viral stars fade when the hype does. Courtney Hadwin? She just kept growing louder. As 2023 rolled on, Courtney wasn't chasing trends, she was building a catalog, song by song, brick by brick. After Monsters, she surprised fans once again. With Christmas Rocks, a fast-paced holiday anthem that traded traditional cheer for gritty guitars and infectious energy. It was fun, it was fearless, and it was entirely her. It became an instant fan favorite, another reminder that Courtney wasn't confined to one genre, one mood, or one formula. But here's where it gets interesting. In April 2024, Courtney was invited to perform at the New York Pop's 41st birthday gala. For Clive Davis, the legendary music executive credited with discovering icons like Whitney Houston and Janis Joplin. This wasn't a talent show. This wasn't viral fame. This was respect, a moment reserved for artists who had earned their seat at the table. For Courtney, it was more than an invitation, it was validation. Later that year, she took another bold step. She re-recorded live versions of all her original songs at Metropolis Studios, one of the UK's most iconic music venues. No filters, no auto-tune, just a mic, a band, and her voice. It was a creative risk and a personal statement. She wanted the world to hear her music as it was meant to be heard, unpolished, human, and full of soul. Stick with me. This next part explains everything. With every release, Courtney had done more than rebuild her career. She redefined it. Not as a packaged product, but as an evolving artist with a voice worth listening to. Her journey wasn't about one show, one song, or one stage. It was about resilience, reinvention, and the kind of slow-burning legacy that doesn't depend on applause, but on truth. Because in the noise of viral fame, Courtney Hadwin chose something harder and far more lasting. Was Courtney Hadwin just another teenage contestant who got her 15 minutes of fame? Or was she something more? From a quiet girl in Hartlepool to a viral superstar on AGT, Courtney's story might have looked like a meteoric rise, but behind that flash was a decade of grit. Most people only remember the golden buzzer, the Janis Joplin comparisons, the standing ovations. But her journey didn't stop when the cameras did. That was just the beginning. She fought through burnout, bullying, public pressure, and the collapse of an industry pipeline that often chews up young artists and spits them out. But Courtney didn't break. She adapted. And just when they thought she'd disappeared, she turned inward, picked up the pen, and started telling her own stories. No producers, no middlemen, just truth. Her original songs started stacking up, not as desperate plays for charts, but as real expressions of growth, pain, and freedom. And people listened. Her social media exploded. Her live covers kept going. Viral. Her fan base didn't just grow, it matured with her. Here's why that matters. Because most people who rise fast, fall fast. But Courtney didn't fall. She climbed differently. She shifted from viral sensation to independent artist, from contestant to creator. And every time she could have stopped, when critics tore her apart, when labels vanished, when gigs got canceled, she chose to keep going. Not louder, not flashier, just more honestly. Today, Courtney Hadwin isn't just a name from AGT. She's a self-made artist with a voice that doesn't just echo, but cuts through the noise. And the best part? She's only getting started. So if you followed her since that first audition, or if you're just discovering her now, keep watching. Because this story, it's far from over.